Hello. It is time. All right. Today's plan is I want to do the weapon. So I added a few things. I'll start with this. Added a few things off stream. Special weapon, game menu. Today is my last day that I can add things. I guess there's certain cases where if it's like something I really obviously needed, but I just forgot to write it down, like a game menu, I think I can make an exception there, but I gotta really consider that. I gotta make sure I'm adding everything here at this point. Okay. Special weapon, Essentially, the idea is it's going to be a weapon hidden on the map, like really hidden on the map, probably out of bounds. You have to use a glitch or something to get there. Like a wonder weapon from Zombies or the Scarab gun from Halo. I think it's probably Halo 2 that does this. Yeah, it's Halo 2. There's like a Banshee you can grab. It's essentially a glitch to get the Banshee, but you get the Banshee and then you like fly up to some structure really high up in the in the level. And there's like a plasma pistol on the ground. You pick it up and it's a Scarab gun. You just like fire. It's like infinite ammo and you shoot like explosives, essentially. Like non-stop explosives. Something like that. Some kind of like really strong weapon just for fun. The game menu. So I think I mentioned this with a cutscene, but I guess I didn't mention it with a cutscene, but essentially I really want this to be coupled with the cutscene. Essentially like the first shot of the cutscene is the background for the main menu when you first start the game. So clicking new game would essentially just fade out the text and the game is already happening. Game's already running. I'll be honest, I think this is very technically easy to do. I don't know why more games don't do it. I think, what is it, Metal Gear 5 does it, which is really cool. I really like that. It's awesome. Though it still kind of is a loading screen because you're in like a helicopter in Metal Gear and you still have to go through menus. You can't just like continue from a mission or something. I guess mine will kind of be the same thing. If I have the cutscene where you start in the car, then if you like click continue game, it's gonna have to load that up, so it's gonna have to fade out or something like that. All right. Yeah, so today what I'm doing is I'm doing the weapon fire system. I'm fixing this. And I'll be doing one gun model. I'll be starting that. I don't know which gun. Probably pistol. It's like the simplest one so far. The thing is with the pistol, I have to do research. I have to make sure that everything is scaled correctly. The pistol is going to have a suppressor on it, so I need to make sure that whatever model I make, it makes sense that it can support a suppressor somehow. So I have to figure that out. I'll have to look up like how suppressors attach to pistols. If the pistol needs to be built to support it, or if just any pistol can have a suppressor on it. Or however, like, I just don't know how that works. I'm assuming it's just like a screw. You just screw it on. Okay. Weapon fire system. So I'll go make this an issue. So I need to fix the coupling of frame rate to weapon fire rate. Generally poor weapon consistency with automatic cycling. So decouple sound and visual effects from frame rate. So essentially moving all of that to process. So process can do some kind of... I think process needs to be reading from something. My thought is I would have a different thread just for a timer for the weapon. And that thread will I guess do a signal or something? I don't really know. I could possibly just leave it on process. So the timer is checked in process, and then any extra timing is factored into like the next weapon cycle. That's a big thing. Raycast are queued up for the physics thread. So if I say physics thread, it's actually all single threaded technically. Physics is running on a different thread, or with like a threading model. But process and physics process are two distinct functions that happen independently of each other. Independently, in series. Physics process will happen, and then process will happen. In that order all the time. Which honestly, I actually think is kind of annoying. I think process should happen first, and then physics process should... Well, maybe not. Input polling should happen before everything. And then physics, and then process. Okay. We'll make that in progress. So here's the thing for timing. I should be specifying how long I'm allowed to work on this. This is a days thing. So let me do this. Estimation, single select, days. Well, I mean, my timeline is more on the order of months. So maybe I do hours, days, weeks. And nothing should be in months. I should have nothing in months. Something is on my mouse somewhere. Like a little grain or something. I guess unset. Well, no, I don't need unset. Okay. Save that. Cool. Yeah, I'll say less than 48 hours. And, less than... Say less than 12 days. And... less than 1 month. Okay. So this should be an hour thing for sure. Okay. All right. Let's get going on that. And actually, I just realized, so this might be the only thing I have time for. I might do a double stream today, because I got something I need to go do, and it's going to be like an hour or longer. Yeah, I'm going to have to do a double stream today. All right. So my thought is, okay, so my first thought was a different thread for timers. But I think definitely the first thing I can kind of do right away is just close everything there. I need to go and clean things up. Okay, so this... Yeah, okay. So that's... I'm just resetting all that. This is something I can't do. Player scene. Yeah, just adding that. Yeah, okay. What is this? Player has like sight points assigned to it. Okay. Right, do I need to... I don't think I need to keep that. I think I will though, actually, so... I'll track that. Okay. Well. Alright. Everything's all clean. So first thing I'm doing is I need to work on the weapon trigger mechanism, perhaps? Save start cycle, tick. If weapon cycle is greater than 0, do that. Is cycled. Update trigger. So this part is kind of special there. Then I had just have single fire. All right. If weapon triggered and is cycled, should trigger, returns true. So I believe weapon node probably handles that part. Interesting. It's probably a method that's like trigger weapon or something. Fire weapon. Update weapon trigger. Mechanism tick. Mechanism update trigger triggered. If mechanism should trigger or weapon cannot fire. Action blocked. Go to fire, mechanism actuated. Update trigger. So, mechanism has been actuated but is not yet cycling. This means the weapon will cycle at some point in the future. So tick handles the weapon cycle, start cycle. Where does start cycle happen? Alright. The weapon trigger system is spaghetti. I've seen enough. It's a little spaghetti. A lot of spaghetti, actually. Because now I don't have any... If weapon triggered and cycled, if automatic fire returned true, otherwise we have to release it. Otherwise it's false. Yeah, so at this point I don't know where start cycle is called. I don't know where that's called. So what I think should happen is when the weapon can be triggered, at that moment, we decide that we're going to fire the weapon with its current orientation. Essentially here. Right here, this is where I say, we're going to fire the weapon, and we're going to fire it with a certain angle. I guess not really, right? Yeah, I guess there is actually a feedback where the weapon has to say that we are... Oh, wow, okay. So, I think I know what's happening. I think I understand now. Where do we connect up the signal? Here it is. On weapon fire. So essentially what I want to do is if I want to decouple this from frame rate, I have to do something with the gun here. This is most noticeable for the revolver, where there is a real delay between clicking the gun and the gun firing. So in some cases, I think most of the animations are also not frame 1 that the weapon fires. I think there's always like this maybe 2-3 frame delay. I've said a few times I could have a thread that is just running separately just for the timer. There is a performance impact with joining threads though, because in order for that information to get back to my program, that can take time. It could take more than a tick, essentially. It could take longer than a frame for that information to come back to the program from a different thread. So perhaps I can't do that. I was kind of thinking that I probably can't do that. So what I was going to do first was just make it so that start cycle adds the weapon cycle time, or does something a little more complicated. Hey Yulia. So maybe we can add I can't believe you didn't win Best Game Dev Streamer Award. Okay. I would have had 1 vote then, if that's true. 3. I don't know how that works. So on weapon fire is a callback from process. It requires a frame. It requires frames to progress. All right, let's say this. Let's say for each weapon, I have to line up. This is the thing. I don't want to define things in 2 places. That's really bad. The animation the weapon scene could know this. Let me go through it. Oh my gosh. Huh. Did you implement your decals yet? Decals. I have not. Right. So here's how here's what initiates the process of firing the weapon. Weapon scene, I tell the weapon scene to go to the fire thing. And I wait for the weapon scene to come back to me and tell me that the weapon is fired. So it's bound to animation. And if it's bound to animation, it's bound to frame rate. In some way. I guess that part might be fine though. The only issue is if that animation is lagging, the precision of that timing is off. So possibly what I need to do is not say do 2 things, I think. The weapon scene can come back. The weapon scene can... Okay. Here's one way to get around this. The weapon scene can remember... Oh no, please stop doing this. Oh my god, please stop doing this. Please don't do it. Okay. I don't know what's up with this. I don't know what's going on with that. I thought I was about to crash. Okay. So it calls travel fire. And here's the thing. This will call... This should emit the fired signal? Yeah, emit fired. It'll call emit fired. So... Is there a way when I load the animation I can read? Ooh. I bet I can read the tracks and find on the function track. Okay, first of all, go to fired. Go to fired. Yeah, so fired is... I always know the name of that. So I could... That's the name of the node. I can find that node, get the animation, get the function call track, and find the exact time that emit fired is called. I could do that on the load. When I load. Because the animation should already be there. Get node state machine, right? So I have a feeling I might do this for some other things in the future. So I'm going to go and make a function that's called get timing. Maybe this goes on the weapon node. And here's the thing. Emit fired. The thing is, I think this is pretty cool, but it is fundamentally not good. Swap hand time? Why does this one have a time? Do I explain why? I literally don't know why. Okay. I would still like to have these things bound to animations. But yeah, I think what's happening is I need some other timer system. All right. These two things, I know for a fact I want to have something special for these. As much as I hate it, I'm going to leave. The thing is, okay, no, because charging even needs to be done too. Charging is something that's also related to the fire rate. Damn. All right, let's do this. Part of the system has stemmed from the fact that Godot's animation, I was throwing in the exact point as like a function call. I think what I should do instead is when I call and that's how I stored my timings. But it's not very correct, right? Because right now I actually have two different timers. I have a cycle time, and then I have the animation timer, which is the time between firing the weapon and charging the weapon. The cycle doesn't start until the animation hits the fire, and you can't fire again unless charge happens. So those things together can result in misfires, essentially, where the cycle timer starts, and just due to lag, that timer ends, but the charge hasn't happened yet. So the weapon skips a fire. And essentially the weapon can be fired, but it has to wait until it hits that charge, which if it's laggy, it could take like an extra couple frames for that charge signal to come through. And I say a couple extra frames because once it does happen, I don't have that lost time. What I would like to do is to have a sequence of, I guess, 3 events. The initial fire delay, the fire moment, which is when the cycle timer starts, and once that cycle timer ends, I consider the weapon having been charged. I take that off the animation. I can still have it on the animation, so if the weapon is not charged, you play the charge animation and then you can fire. But then I have those 3 stages, essentially. A pre-fire delay, the start of the cycle timer, and then the end of the cycle timer. And like I said, I say, if the cycle timer ends, I just consider the weapon having been charged. So what does this look like? I think this looks like I would still like stuff to be tied well to the animation. So, but I probably shouldn't do that. Because at the end of the day, the animation is only updated via process timers. It is already frame rate bound. So I should cut that bit in the middle where I rely on the animation to come back to me and just say, I have my own timer. I'm just going to assume the animation is running correctly and looks good. Okay. So let's do this. Let me go to data. I'm essentially just going to restructure how weapons operate. Not really operate, but the mechanism part. So, do I have any... I have this trigger mechanism. Alright. So I think essentially what I'm looking for is a pre-fire delay. So if cycle time... automatic fire? Why is automatic fire listed above that? Oh, single fire contains automatic fire. Alright, so... toggle by update input and tick to prevent missed input. Has tick. Oh, damn. What are these things? Weapon triggered. Update trigger. When I set, if we are setting it to false, we must tick before we can set it to false. Okay. That's fine. You know what, I think this is probably a pretty common thing, so I'll just do it all. Zero to, I guess, a full second, and then I can be pretty precise. How much precision does that give me? Oh, 1/10 of a second. That's like 1 frame. let me double check this because I want to give myself some pretty good precision here. So 1 over 60 is that. Okay, I'll give myself another decimal, 100th place. We can go greater, of course, and suffixes seconds. So initial delay when actuated before a projectile fires. Let's arrange to... Actually, you know, maybe I should go... What is this? Milliseconds? So I'll go milliseconds and give myself, like, that. That kind of precision. Weapon cycle time in milliseconds. Minimum time between consecutive triggers. And then... trigger mechanism. How does... chambering work? I believe it comes back as a callback from here. If the weapon type can't charge. No, that's not it. Oh, interesting. Weapon scene go to charge. On weapon fire. On weapon charged. Yeah, so on weapon charge is coming from animation. So that should be another timer. Essentially from the mechanism. Like I said, once the weapon cycles, that's when I can consider it charged. I guess that's part of it, right? Can chamber. Alright, I think I'll just leave it at fire delay and cycle time. And then... weapon resource. Probably has, yeah, fire projectiles. So, trigger mechanism starts cycle. Fire projectile. Then it'll have to be chambered and does the ray cast. Then it updates the ammo. charge weapon. Oh, what was that? Did you hear that? Yeah. Physics process. Where does... Is that really in the controller? Handles this? It probably shouldn't be there, should it? What? Why is there so much? There's so much. Alright. Update trigger. There we go. So update weapon node is called from update first person, which is called from process. I mean, that's fine. So I actually do get a really precise timing there. Huh. So weapon node update trigger passes in the delta. That. Honestly, I think this should be on itself. No, I can't do it on itself because the player input doesn't happen like that. So, right. Yeah, okay, I just accept it from here. So we tick with delta time, we update trigger. Perhaps what I do is I should instead because how do I decide, where do I say if the weapon cycle also chambers? If the weapon, whoa. Huh. Dude, I don't know if I can last actually. That's way too many yawns, way too soon. So all right, I guess this would be the first part. So this means the weapon will cycle at some point, but is not yet cycling. So what should happen is this should go away. Yes, this should go away. That doesn't happen there anymore. Instead, actuated should do this. And or I guess it would be single fire actuated. I'll do that. And then start cycle, I'm assuming it's probably no longer called anywhere. Revolver emit fired. Trigger mechanism starts cycle. Maybe I disregard the revolver here and just... The revolver needs some special things, and I can work with those special things when I get there. And this is emit fire too, so this actually wouldn't be happening. It would be based on that initial delay thing. But it does check if the round is live. But that doesn't... Yeah, but that doesn't make sense, because we have the revolver cylinder ammo state. Oh, which is round live is actually called straight to revolver is round live, so even more detached from that. So I'll just have to patch that up when I get there. Oh, but yeah, for now, start cycle is not something that happens. We don't do that. So... Okay. So I think maybe tick needs to return some values. So tick can return, well, actually maybe not. I think tick probably creates... Alright, so here's something that can happen. Worst case, something crazy happens and we have such a high delta time and the weapon cycles 30 times. Okay, just a crazy number of cycles that happen. I want to fire a bullet for all of those. I want all those 30 bullets to fire. So after I call tick on weapon node, I need to know what has happened. So update trigger should do whatever it needs to do, I guess. Maybe I can say the tick returns true when something is going to happen, and tick returns false. Okay, here's an idea. Tick returns a floating point value for like more delta time that it wants to run. Okay? Okay. So let's do this. Essentially all of this will happen, but I'll say update the delta from the tick. And this returns a new float. Right? Because we could actuate, we could do cycling, we could do fire, we could do a lot of stuff with one delta time. So this needs to keep, I want to keep calling this. My idea to keep calling it with a returned value is so that I don't have to do like tick delta and then like process a whole list of things. I can just keep calling it and like checking individual booleans and things like that. Okay. So when it says action blocked, action okay, action not ready, I guess what I do is I probably track, probably just track a result. It can just be nothing. Because a lot of things, like I said, a lot of things can happen with one delta. I'll just leave it as pass for now, too. Alright, so I have a fire delay, a cycle time, and then weapon cycle. So I believe I told myself there are 3 things that happen. There's an initial, I guess how many sections of timers are there? There's 2 sections. There's a fire delay and then a cycle time. And I'm going to consider the cycle time as being it starts when the bullet projectile happens and it ends when the next round that can be chambered. It ends at the moment that the next round chambers. Okay? Unused private class variable. I don't even know why that's there. Those probably don't need to be there anymore. Okay. Um, delay timer and cycle timer. Okay, so we tick. I can say has ticked is true. And then I can say uh anytime I call tick, I'm also calling update trigger. So I'm actually interested in that. I think I'm actually interested in update trigger is always called once per frame. Not true. Update trigger has all these requirements. Yeah, so tick is actually going to call update trigger. Let me see if update trigger is ever called. Okay, that's weapon node update trigger. I'm looking for trigger mechanism update trigger. Yeah, so calling it there doesn't make sense then. So tick should be has ticked and update trigger. Like so. We update the trigger, and this is where we can say weapon triggered. And when weapon is triggered, that's also when I want actuating to happen. So weapon should trigger. It must be cycled. So we call should trigger. If there's no timer, we consume the whole delta time, so we're good there. Then I would call mechanism actuated. So the first time I click, the full delta is consumed immediately because I clicked on that time. We would activate the mechanism, which would start. It will start the timers. Let me check if, if actuator is ever called anywhere. That's where I'm working right now. That's the definition. This is an extra thing, which is releasing. Okay. All right. And actuate is where the timers start. Okay. I would call update trigger, which I do say this is called once. which I'm either setting it to true or false. So does that have an issue? Has ticked has to be true for us to set it to false. If we set it to true, then we say that we haven't ticked, so we need another tick to run to untrigger the weapon. So this is for, like I said, single fire weapons, or like it said, not I said, where I have to have at least one update in between clicking, where I have a released input to fire the pistol again. So I guess this means if your game is running too slow, then that release, you're limited by that release. Whatever. That's fine. I kind of need that. Hey, Nexus. I do say it's called once per frame, but this is not correct. Called at least once per frame. It'd be called multiple times. Implement per trigger type. Okay. So I start with delay timer. So I need to do some operation here where I take away delta up to the value of delay timer. So I guess I could say, let me do this up here. Remainder is delta. If the remainder is greater than delay timer, then delay timer will be 0. And remainder will subtract delay timer. Otherwise, we have less, or I guess it would be equal to, right? Let me do this. So if remainder is larger than the delta delay timer, or they're nearly equal, then I would do remainder minus that, and I'll just skip delay timer. So if they're nearly equal, I think this only goes to like, honestly, I think this doesn't even go as far as I want. So let's say, what would it be? Remainder is greater than delay timer, so all right, I'll just keep it simple. I won't do that. I won't do that much. For the remainder. Well, I mean, maybe I don't have to actually do that, so, yeah. Delta. Okay, then if cycle timer is positive, same thing. Was returning 0. We took it all. So this should save me from getting a large delta without missing anything. I guess actually what I would do is I would say return oh wait, no, this is that. And this would be 0. Okay, a little bit smarter. Yeah, I know at this point that I can't do anymore. Yeah, all right. So actuated needs to, I think, just simply set all the timers. Yeah. Is cycled, return so it should be impossible for these to become negative, is that right? If this is greater or equal, I'll be setting it to 0. Otherwise delta is less than cycle timer. So I know it can't become negative here. Okay. Return cycle timer 0. Very simple. Okay, guess I have to add that warning back. This will allow me to have multiple updates or multiple ticks for the timers and multiple firings. Although yeah. So then here's the part where I need to make it so this gets called, or it gets like queued up to call on the physics frame. with some counter. So I need to be able to queue multiple ones of the multiple calls in a single call. So perhaps what I can even do is, since this actually runs physics process, I could even call on weapon fire. But probably what I really want is in here, I actually check that counter right there. So let's do that. So when the trigger mechanism runs through its delay timer, it needs to say Alright, so I guess actuated is where I say I increase that timer, or increase that counter. And then every time I pass delay timer, okay, first of all, let me check this actually would work with the large delta time. Maybe I need to run. Maybe I actually need to run. Yeah, kind of here's the issue, right? I can decide to fire the weapon while still having delta time left over. I guess I assume the first time I fire the weapon, I just have the assumption that I just triggered the weapon. Not that I had been triggering the weapon. I can adjust the camera. So then the next time I come around, I run this, I go through I guess here I actually should say probably if, well, actually no, I just started with that and then, yeah, okay. Action blocked. Yeah, okay. I guess this could be an LF. Whoops. I click the button to shoot the gun. I'm just going to assume that everything happens perfectly fine, and then enough time passes. I'm still holding the button. Enough time passes, and I'm using the automatic rifle, that 2 more bullets should fire. Can that happen? So, enough time passes that 2 bullets fire, right? The mechanism ticks. We go in here, delay and cycle timer, or I guess delay is present. The delta is much greater than delay timer, so we take off the delay timer and then we return delta. Okay? And we update a trigger. So updated trigger at this point would say I guess actually the order this should be, oh yeah, it should be after this, shouldn't it? I can't update unless, well, I guess if I return 0, it needs to do that. What do I do there? I guess this is an else, isn't it? And then here I would just like to call update trigger and return 0. Okay, so that order makes a bit more sense now. So the delay timer has been zeroed. We're going to return delta. Come back here. Delta is still going to be positive. The mechanism won't be able to trigger because the cycle timer isn't up. So wait. Oh yeah, if the mechanism cannot trigger or the weapon cannot fire, then we do this. Result is blocked. We step through. We tick it again. So now the delta is still really large. Cycle timer runs out. And we return the delta. Oh, actually, I guess... Oh. No, yeah. We return the delta, but cycle timer is 0, but we're returning a positive value, so we should expect to run again. So we go through here, we still can't do that. Oh, you know what? This is kind of a weird way to do it, actually. So I should probably actually say else do this. Delta is 0. And then I guess down here I can say if cycle timer is positive and delta is positive. Do that. Otherwise, I run this. Delta will not be zeroed. Then I call that and I return delta down here. Okay, so update trigger can be called every time. All right. So I fire 1 bullet. We come back here. The delta timer has passed, is large enough that it should fire 2 more times. So I call tick. We get in here. Delay timer was positive because we actuated once before. The delta is larger than the timer, so this becomes 0. We reduce the delta. We get down here. Delta's still really big, and it's larger than the cycle timer. So cycle timer is now 0. Delta's still a large value. Then we call update trigger. Let's go to single fire. Update trigger just says, yeah, we're triggered, right? Then I run should trigger. Should trigger will say, yes, because is cycled. We'll say that cycle timer is currently 0 and say yes. And we are triggered. And it's an automatic weapon, so I return true every time. So then this returns true. And because of the or, I guess then we have to check if the weapon can also fire. Maybe I should write this the other way around. This is kind of like a weird way to do it. If mechanism should trigger and a weapon can fire, and this, oh, I guess the reason I do this is because this can only happen if both of these are false. Or it has to happen if both of these are false. If one of them is false. If one of them is false. But if both of these are true, I don't want to do that. I want this to happen. Okay, so yeah. And this is actually kind of the wrong way to do this. Yeah, this is the wrong way to do this. This is the wrong way to do this. So yeah, let me say this. Yeah, this has to move around. So if the mechanism should trigger and the weapon can fire, I'm just calling this. I'm not tying. I'm detaching myself from animations. Result is okay. And then this is an else. The action is blocked. Because one of these two is not available, I guess. If we can't fire, if we physically cannot fire the weapon for some reason, and we're not triggered, then we turn off the recoil. Okay, that's the right way. That's the way it should be. I will have to hop off soon, and I'll probably come back for a second part of the stream. I would like to. I gotta adjust the window. 1 sec. So is action not ready possible? Let me check what this expects. It only checks to see if it's okay. It actually doesn't look at anything else. Does it ever read blocked? Really? Weapon node action blocked. I never check for anything other than okay. So this could just be a Boolean. Why have I done that? This should be a Boolean. Do I check for... Actually, wait, what are these called? Maybe I kind of... Under, not ready... Okay, well, let me just scroll up and look at it. Blocked. So all caps blocked. These are returns. I never compare to it. Do I even compare to not ready? I don't. I only check if it's okay. Alright. Well... that can go away now. Returns true if the weapon has actuated and will soon fire. Alright, so... and actually, I guess this becomes an LF there. Charge. Weapon should charge. Through. True if the weapon will soon charge. Oh, wait, what? Yeah, this should just be return. Actually, it should just be return this. Return that value. I need to make sure I actually pay attention to this, to the code here. Old prince. I think the reason I did that was for debugging. Which were those print statements I just deleted, but I can get that now without having this extra weird part of it. And honestly, I guess some interactions with the gun are animation limited. Unfortunately. Like, in order to melee, the machine has to be in a state where melee is possible. And I believe the way this works is I'd have to go find scripts for these weapons. Where are they? Scene, weapon, pistol. Revolver probably does this. Or go to melee. Okay. I guess melee's a little different there. But go to reload, go to unload, these all have very specific times that you can do this. A lot of stuff here. So yeah, that's why these are like that. Okay, and now player action needs to be I'll call it actuated. Whoops. Whoops. If actuated, all that. And then actuated is that, and then if actuated. Yeah. If weapon node charge. Honestly, I don't even really need to do this, do I? Because I'm setting a boolean and then I'm reading it in place. I guess it's good for... It's fine. If anything, the spot down here where I put the function in there, I probably shouldn't do that. I'll even name this one actuated. Okay. I was just thinking about this recoil thing. I probably shouldn't be thinking about that. That's not what I'm trying to work on here. Alright, so now this is in a spot where it should handle all that stuff. The only issue is now I still have the problem of weapon scene emit fire and emit charge. Emit charge is fine, that can be animation bound. But when a gun is fired, I know that I'm firing it when I call actuated. And at that point, it's just timers. It's up to me to pray that the animation is, you know, lining up well, but me doing the raycast and starting the particle effects, those happen based on the timer, and only the timer, regardless of the current state of the fire animation. Perhaps I can leave myself room for if I have... I don't know. I was... Okay, so... I don't have any gun that's like this. But how would I handle... I mean, I can ask myself the question, but maybe it's not even necessary for me to think about that. How would I handle a weapon that charges while you hold the trigger and fires when you release? I guess it's the same thing, right? I have an animation that's just visual. It's not doing anything. It doesn't contain any logic. I'm just keeping a timer in the background that's running. And when I release, I check that timer, and that would be my damage amount or whatever that I'm going to do for the charge output for the charging weapon. So there's still no emit fire thing. I think I'll leave maybe emit fired. No, this needs to be a pass, and I'll leave a note here. Yeah, firing is timer only. This won't do anything. This won't emit this signal. I'll leave the signal for now, but I'm stripping that part of it. Okay, so update trigger. Actuated should... Yeah, so now here's the thing. When I tick, I get back, and this is all in process. I think what I do is when I run tick and I call actuate, there's that delay timer that's running. I think I need to ask from... All right. In between actuation and the delay timer, what happens here? All right, so first time I call tick, there's no timers running. We haven't actuated before. If Delta comes back with a positive time on tick, I should assume that I may need to queue up a fire command, I guess, for the weapon, which essentially just means I grab the current orientation of the weapon, which this is in the process, so this is frame. So what I see on the screen is where the weapon should fire at that point, once the delay timer elapses. How can I know if the delay timer has elapsed? Maybe what I do is I increment a counter when I call actuate, and then every time I tick, I check if delay timer is 0, and it is. I subtract 1 from the actuated, from a delay actuate, and I add it to like a queue. Or not even that, I just say, all right, you know, set up the command. Where's the weapon where's the weapon looking? Trigger array cast for that. That's what it should do. Alright, so anytime I call actuated, I'm gonna... Yeah, I think I just need to do that. I need to keep a timer, or a counter for like delay fires. Where will I put this? I don't know. Um, okay. I add 1 to the fire counter. So then after I tick, I will do a mechanism. I think I probably have like a this is where I want it to happen, specifically here. So perhaps what I can do is whenever I call tick, I'll do a Boolean that says as fired as false, and I'll say is true when delay timer reaches 0. And I guess I'll do this if fire delay is 0, then as fired is true here. So if there's no delay, we fired immediately when I call actuate. Every time I call tick, I reset that value because I only want it to happen. I only want it to be true after I call tick, each time I call tick. Okay, so here's the thing. What if... No, that wouldn't make any sense. I was going to say, what if I have a delay timer and I call has fired and then I do actuated? That doesn't make any sense because fire delay would be 0. This shouldn't happen like that. It's like... Okay. I think I'm actually out of time right now. So on actuated, perhaps what I can do is I can do fire counter here, and then down here I run, I'll leave a note. Something like that. Then all we need is firing. To just return as fired. Okay. That's all I got time for right now. I gotta go. Probably be back later today for part 2 of the stream. But yeah, for now, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.